And I remember Kane was centre forward, and I don't mind. He scored a hat trick that game. He absolutely took us to the cleaners, and I remember just being a little like, well, that's Edgar Davids. Still had the goggles on and everything like that. So it was very emotional actually going to Wembley, 30,000 fans there, you know, and for me, probably the best thing is leading out Bromley as a captain. Rooming, me and Zaha were rooming a couple of times, not name dropping or anything, but I remember going away with him. The non-league, especially the conference, is probably one of the hardest leagues to get out of as a football club.
Jack, could you just give us a brief summary of your career and background as a player?
Yeah, so I started, I'd say properly, I was at Bromley originally until I was about, I think it was 14. And then I got asked to go to Fulham at under 15s. So I trialled there and then obviously got in and I was there for a year. At which time they were giving out scholars, 2-year scholars. So I didn't unfortunately get my scholar at Fulham, but we played Palace. Their under-18s manager at the time, Gary Izzett, said if it doesn't work out there, come to Crystal Palace. So I went down there, got my 2-year scholar, which I did, and was there for 3 years as a pro. Where during the time I went back on loan to Bromley, where when my time at Palace come to an end, I went to Bromley where I spent 8 years, which is quite a long time in the non-league, to be at that club, at one club for that long, until last year, where I signed now for Dulwich Hamlet, which has been, you know, it's been a good change, I think, for myself, moving back into what is part-time. But I'm really enjoying it. It's a really good club, to be honest, and with a great fan base.
Cool. Cheers for that. So back to Bromley and Fulham initially. What were the main differences at that age? You know, it's going from that sort of, I guess you could call it. Was Bromley professional at that time?
No. So
No.
with Fulham under 15s, even though it was under 15s, even back then was pretty. Fulham as a club is pretty like obviously professional, and it filtered down. Even at under 15 level, they were doing gym sessions and stuff like that, and the training, and it was right next to like the 18s, which at the time was a big thing. You don't really see that, but we was so we saw them train and stuff like that. But it was a really, really professional outfit at Fulham. And obviously I went to Palace, which obviously, you know, then you do get thrown into the professional world, like properly professional. You do the same hours as the first team. You're around them, you have to do jobs. So it'd be like moving goals or cleaning boots, etc., being around them the whole time. And then it sort of prepares you, if you're lucky enough to make that jump into professional, which I was lucky enough to do. And I think that the big difference from when I left Palace, which was, you know, professional and stuff like that, Bromley at the time were part-time, 2 nights a week. And in the Conference South it was. And it was a difference in everything really at the time. The training was completely different. I remember at Bromley originally, this was back in the day, we were training sometimes with 6 people on a pitch behind the stadium.
Yeah.
Which honestly, it was tore to shreds. I remember one time we trained on it when it was waterlogged, and
Really?
we had nowhere else to train, so we was training literally on a waterlogged little 7-a-side, not even 4G, 3G pitch. So you can imagine from one level to the other,
Yeah,
was a big difference. And to be honest, the club, Bromley as a club, from what that was to where they are now, is massive. But the original, you know, from Crystal Palace to Bromley was a bit of an eye opener. But I think it was saying that having that happened put me in good stead with what the non-league side of football can be like.
Mm-hmm. Cheers for that. A lot of the guys I've had on so far sort of have a different, completely opposite path to that. So they'll be in an academy going into, well, I guess in non-league before they'll go into a professional setup.
Yeah.
First question: how did Palace come to an end, and then how did you keep yourself sort of mentally there to go? You know what? Let's get back up again. Back to my boyhood club. How am I gonna sort of keep myself going?
Palace come to an end. It was just I was there for 3 years. When I was 18, well, I was still a scholar. I travelled away to a few games with the first team. I was in and around it. I remember I was with Wilf rooming. Me and Zaha were rooming a couple of times. Not name dropping or anything, but I remember going away with him. And at 18, you think, okay, I'm there. I'm almost there. I can see it. And then just as the years went on, it just didn't happen for me. Which is something that happens. Obviously, it's disappointing when you're not quite there and you don't quite see it. There's a lot of people in the same boat as that, and it just came to a point where there was no future for me at Crystal Palace, which at the time, when you get told, it is a bit of a shock, but at the same time, I think what helped me personally was the family I had around me, my friends, stuff like that. It isn't the end of the world to get let go, even though it might seem it at the time. So yeah, that left Crystal Palace and stuff like that. And then it's just, you've got to keep your head above the water. You have to see, right, where am I going next? It's never, you can't stay still too long, I think, in football. So luckily enough, I was on loan at Bromley from Crystal Palace in my last year. I knew Mark Goldberg, who was the manager at the time, from years and years ago, back when we was playing as like under 10s and stuff like that. So, I knew him and he wanted me in. So I went down there and we were just forming a pretty much brand new side at Bromley. And I remember training in the park. We trained in the park for pre-season and stuff like that. And to be honest, is where I probably met some of my, really good friends that I'm still friends with now. But I think where I had, Bromley local club as well, and I knew everyone, and it almost helped me in the transition. But it was always a case of, just keep your head focused on what's in front of you. There was ambition at the club, which I think was massive. We want, like, they got a squad together that, was all pulling in the same direction. So as soon as we got in there, it was like, right, we're going for the league. We're going to go. And that sort of kept my mind with the players we had. Like, we have a mission. We're going to get promoted, which we eventually did. I think in the second year we were there. But, it's always, you have to think about what's next in your career. You can never look back or stay still on too much. Yeah. Otherwise, you will probably falter and you won't reach the heights that you want to reach.
Cheers. You mentioned Wilfried Zaha. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here. What did you, while you were at Palace, what did you notice about him? And did you know that maybe in the way he trained, the way he played, little things about him that he would make it where he is today?
Yeah, he loves football. That's the first thing. He loves football, and I think that's, it shows in the way he still plays now. He is a good person, to be honest. And I know a lot's come out, I think, at the moment about, for his charity work and stuff like that. But you knew that anyway, like when you're around him. And I remember, I think it was our first year, because when I was a second year scholar, he was a first year, because he's a year below me. And I remember the first year, if I'm being totally honest, I thought, okay, he's good and stuff like that. But I didn't see him for what he was at the time, as player wise. And then in his second year, when he come back from the first year, he took off. Like there was no, you know, like gradual thing. To me anyway at the time, he come back and he was a different player, and he quickly obviously rose to, you know, the first team and stuff like that, and by that point he was gone. But you know, I know of him. Yeah, I don't want to say like I know him. I ring him up every day. Like that's not the case. But from what I know of him, he's a local boy and stuff like that. It really couldn't have been at a better club for him.
Yeah.
And you know, all the success that he's, you know, accomplished over the years has been well deserved.
So we've touched on Palace, and obviously you spent 8 years at Bromley. Is there ever any part of you that's like, obviously you had a really successful time at Bromley, but being at clubs like Fulham and Palace in your youth, is there any part of you that's like, maybe I could have played a bit higher, or did any offers ever come through?
Yeah, I mean, you always could. Do I think I could have played higher? Yes, I do. In all honesty, and throughout the years, you always hear this team's coming to watch you, that team's coming to watch you. But just, you know, would I change anything? I don't know if I would. Obviously, you want to play at the highest level you can. But when I look at my years with Bromley, it was my local club. You know, I literally live 6 minutes away from Bromley Stadium. And throughout the years, you and the people you meet, not only players, but the staff, everyone involved in the club, the fans and stuff like that. It really is a community. Like when you be there that long, I remember like the cleaner salute. You know what I mean? Every day you go hello, and he'd be like hello. Like, I saw him every day for 8 years,
Yeah.
and the club as a whole, you know, really embraces you as a player, and you almost form you form friendship. There's still fans that I talk to now and stuff like that. Players especially that throughout the years are my mates. Like right now, I usually like there was two groups. There was the likes of Rob Swain, Joe Anderson, Hugo, Rob Preza. You know, there's ones that I won the league with, and you know, really shared good times with, and you know, we're still good mates. And I've got a group now, the likes of Sam Wood, Frankie Raymond, Luke Coulson, who's still at Bromley now,
Yeah.
and George Porter and stuff like that, which they are my mates now. Like we are mates, and we formed a friendship that will last, even though we've all gone elsewhere and we'll play for different clubs. You know, I wouldn't trade probably them years I've had at Bromley for any other club.
You touched on winning the league there. What would you say was your best moment at Bromley? And I know you guys got to the final at Wembley of the FA Trophy, if I'm correct, and unfortunately lost on pens. Would you put that up there?
Yeah, 100%. Winning the league, you know, because we were close the first year to winning the league, but we just missed out on that. And then the second year we come back and we've done it. You know, was a special moment, and you know, all my family were there and friends. But looking back for me, it probably is Wembley. The whole journey, we must have done. Oh, we must have been up like the furthest north you can imagine. We went there multiple times. There was one time we had to go up there. We got all the way up there, and the game was called off.
Really?
And this was like the journey of death. I can't remember what game it was that we played, but I remember. I think I might have touched on this before in another interview, where the fans had travelled up. They were already up there, and they were at a pub around the corner. And we had Smudge, the manager at the time, and he was like, "Right, we're all going to go into the pub. Everyone, we're all going to have a drink with the fans." And we were in there. You know, everyone was playing darts, pool, like all the fans, all the players together. And I think there's a photo now in the club bar of everyone in there. And we lost a quite important person of the club, Glenn Beverley, that year. who he was involved with the club for many years, and everyone loved him at the club. And I remember in the semi-final, like, we had a picture of him up on the wall and stuff like that. So when we went out there, we could see what we're trying to do it for and stuff like that. And it was very emotional actually going to Wembley, 30,000 fans there. And for me, probably the best thing is leading out Bromley as a captain of your hometown club. And I know Smudge feels the same as manager, because he's a local man as well. So, to have two local boys and men lead out, a club at Wembley with 30,000 fans there it isn't something you forget, to be honest.
Could you just briefly summarise what that competition actually is for anyone that might not know?
Yeah, so the FA Trophy is pretty much the non-league FA Cup, I would say. So you have, I don't know what level they come in at, but it's basically the non-league FA Cup, I should say, yeah, where you have the same rounds and stuff like that, all to get to Wembley to play for the FA Trophy, it's called. And there's also one under that called the Vase, I think it is, FA Vase. And both games get played at Wembley on the same day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon.
Cool. So you touched on the pub experience, obviously, with the fans. Do you think that the National League doesn't get the respect it deserves? Because people that I know maybe don't know too much about it sort of just group together non-league as one big block of maybe not as technical football as it actually is. And obviously there's been brilliant players playing in the National League over the years. How would you summarise it as a league?
I think, non-league, to be honest, I think is getting a bit more recognition. Like you said, with the players that are coming through from the non-league, I think, it's making people look at the non-league a bit more. And I know on like non-league days and stuff like that, the fans are coming out. At Dulwich, I know we have regularly over 3,000 fans come a game, which is, for Conference South especially, is unheard of. But I know what you're saying about, I think, a lot of people that probably don't know much about the non-league group us all together, all the leagues together. But it's not the case. It's I would say personally, when you say you drop out of, say, League Two, and I think this is well known, especially in the non-league. The non-league, especially the conference, is probably one of the hardest leagues to get out of as a football club. As a league, it is so hard, and that's why I think some teams struggle when they come down. It isn't a case of you'll pop straight back up. That's not the case. And it does, it can be a very demanding league as well. Especially again, the conference, you're traveling all over the country. Some teams are still part-time in the conference, you know what I mean? So it can be daunting, but I think there's so much for the non-league to offer. And I think, everyone's just starting to see that now. And I know most conference teams are pretty much professional in the way they go about their business anyway, training pretty much the same hours as full-time teams. So it's pretty much for me a third league, a League Three, say, for me.
So do you feel that divide between League Two and non-league is sort of closing?
I think so. I think so. I think if you look at some of the teams in the conference, some big teams as well, you've got the likes of, obviously, not the Notts Counties, Wrexham's now, with a lot of backing. Stockport, really, like, a lot of backing as well. I know Boreham Wood and Bromley are up there. But there are some, again, Southend. There are some big teams that are in that league, and they are well-known league teams. Yeovil, another one. So, yeah, I think the gap is closing.
Cheers. My English teacher is actually a regular at Dulwich Hamlet, so I'll have to let him know.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, let him know. He'll be down the rab.
He'll be over the moon. So moving on to representing England and the C team, could you just explain what that team actually is and how that sort of came about?
Yeah, so the England C team, pretty much, I think it's under 23 you have to be, and they basically pluck players from the non-league, all around the non-league, mainly the conference, but all around the non-league. And I remember I got a call up when I was 21, I think, just turned 21. And I played in it was just a game against like the army or something like that. And I think it was like a showcase game pretty much. And then I got invited back to play a friendly in Jordan, which I went and done, which, is an experience in itself. To go over to, Jordan and go and play a game of football. It was an experience. It was, to be honest, it was like going away with England. Everything was, so professional, and what you can imagine the England team doing, that's what we done. But yeah, I think I represented them a few times, went away a few times against Estonia and stuff like that, and Slovakia I think I went away with, and met some really, really good players and good people. And I think an ex-Dulwich boy I played with, I think it was Estonia, Ethan Pinnock, who's now in the Premiership. And to be fair, when we played with him back then, he you could tell he was head and shoulders above the rest. But yeah, it was a good experience. I actually played my last game I played for England C was in England, and it was at Sutton. And I just so happened to score. To be fair, so
Really?
and obviously my family were there. It's, my family living in and around mainly Bromley, but my old man's in Croydon, so it was local. They all come and watched. So it ain't. I know it's England C, but I will still say that I scored for England. Do you know what I mean? So it was, it was fond memories.
So what's that feeling like? Like putting on the English shirt, albeit at C team level, it must be something special.
Yeah, I think any time you put on an England shirt, you treasure it. I never put it on thinking I'm representing England C. I thought, right, when you put on the shirt, you think, right, I'm representing England. You do the national anthems and stuff like that, and just the whole experience was amazing, to be honest. And again, it's probably one of my fondest memories of football. Not many people can say that they played for England at whatever level.
Yeah.
So it is something that not many people have done, and I was blessed to do it.
Back to club football. Why did you decide to leave Bromley last summer?
Again, like same at Palace, I think my time had come to an end. I think, I wasn't really playing at the end of the last campaign. And the boys, were flying. They, we got to the playoffs, lost to Hartlepool, I believe it was, who eventually went up. So, I sat down with the manager, and he said to me, he said to me that, thank you for all the time spent and stuff like that. And it just said, I don't have you in my plans, which I said this before. I think a lot of people will be like, oh, I bet you hate him and stuff like that. But I'm like, no, it's football. This happens. My time had come to an end. I had a great 8 years there, and I've been back to watch him. I still have friends there that I want to do well. I want them to do well, and the club as general will always be close to me. So always look out for it. But yeah, I think like football in general, my time had come to an end there, and it was time for a new challenge.
And how have you found that shift to part-time football at Dulwich Hamlet? I know you're working as a PT now. How have you found that balance?
Yeah, I went there, and it was 2 nights a week. I know they were 3 mornings last year, but they've gone to 2 nights a week now. And I started working. I opened up a business with my brother, doing recruitment, THG recruitment. It's a recruitment business for construction. And I will hold my hands up to all the recruiters out there. it's a tough job. It's a tough job. My brother's doing really well, but you know, I thought I'd give it a go, but it just wasn't me. I think being out of an office for as long as I had been, you know, it was hard to adapt. But then I come back to my passion, which is fitness and stuff like that, you know. So I created Jack Holland Fit, and it's been going since the end of last year. And to be honest, I'm really enjoying it. And with the football, it gives me the opportunity, where we train 2 evenings, it gives me the opportunity to, you know, really get going with the personal training.
Yeah.
I spend pretty much. I'm up quite early, to be honest. I'm not really an early person, but I
I've
wake up
seen you.
about.
I've seen your Instagram
I've seen
stories.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm putting the hours in. I'm
Mm.
working out of Life Lab, which is, this is what I mean about when you meet people. I met Frankie Raymond, who, you know, we're still obviously really good mates, and he was at Bromley with me, and he has a gym called Life Lab, which is in Chislehurst. And I always remember him saying to me, you know, it'd be good to get you in. I was like, yeah. If I do it again, I'll be there. And it just so happened that, you know, he has a gym and I'm getting back into personal training. So you always, like, you never know who you might meet in football, and to have him as one of my mates and now working in the gym just, you know, proves how many people you meet in football. And you know, it's good, and I'm getting the balance now. It was tough. It's long days, especially when sometimes you won't get in from football until gone 11:30, and you can't sleep if it's a game and stuff like that. But I'm starting to get the balance there now, and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing.
You touch on how many people you meet in football, and this probably wasn't as much of a problem for you. Obviously, 8 years of Bromley, 374 appearances, I think it was. But do you think that part of football, in a lot of players are given 1 year contracts, meet you people, get close to people, and then the next year you're off, maybe even to a different country, somewhere completely new? Do you think that needs a bit more awareness raised around it?
Yeah, I think especially in non-league, there are players that come in and out all the time. You meet, like I said, you meet so many people, and there's so many journeys of people, and I know players that have been at multiple clubs in the same year and done that year in, year out. And that, really and truly, the money in non-league, you've got to remember, some people, this is their earnings, and an extra how much money is a big pull at that time. And that's, you know, it's tough, I think, but I think it's just been part of the nature of non-league since I've played in it, that you only get 1 year contracts mainly. You know, I think they're starting to give 2 years. I know in some cases there's 3 years going out, so it's starting to get a bit better. But mainly it's 1 years, and it's tough, especially when with some players it's your only source of income. You might get to Christmas, only have a few months left, trying to fight for a new contract, not knowing what the future holds for you the next year, not knowing if you'll be earning money the next year. So it's tough. It is a tough thing to deal with, but then again, like I said, it is the nature of the beast. I can't see it changing anytime soon, just because of the financials of most non-league clubs. They can only afford to give you 1 year deals, but I think it is getting a bit better. But yeah, I can't see it changing anytime soon, and it's something players have got to deal with.
Cheers. Last couple of questions. So you've moved from full-time football to part-time. What are your sort of ambitions from now on, football-wise?
Football-wise, Joe, you know what? Always an ambition of mine to begin with is, you know, to be successful. That's what you play football for. To play at the highest you can, play at the best you can, and hopefully give clubs success. And for me, Dulwich are a team that want to, you know, progress up the league. So they've got the fan base there, and stuff like that. And there's so much support that you want to give your best for the team you're playing for. And promotion obviously is the key to that. And I think for me, I still want to play at the highest level. I still want to achieve success, and that's something that us, as a team, we have a goal to get to the conference and get promoted. But mainly for me, I just want to enjoy it. Football sometimes can be very harsh, and you can go through spells of where you're not enjoying your football anymore. And I think many players have gone through that. So when you find a club, I was lucky enough to be at Bromley, a club I loved and stuff like that, and I always enjoy my time there. But I know that's not always the case. So as long as I can, go and play football, have a smile on my face, and do well, that's all I need out of football.
I like to end off with this one. Best player played with, best player played against.
Best player played with. Can I count youth team?
Yeah, sure.
I think I once played, in a reserve game with Edgar Davids.
Really?
I'll throw his name out there. Yeah, he was at Palace for a little bit. And in youth team, it'd have to be Zaha, I think, 100%. Best player played against. It's reserve. I did a lot of reserve games, you see, and and we played a lot of teams, but I think Harry Kane we played Tottenham, and they had a few players. They had Dawson playing. I think Bostock was playing, Bentley, and I remember Kane was centre forward, and I don't mind. He scored a hat trick that game. He absolutely took us to the cleaners. But I think Harry Kane, best player I played against, and Zaha and Edgar Davids probably played with. Yeah,
decent little selection. That I had a guy on recently, and he was at Chelsea Academy when he was younger. I think his picks were Callum Hudson-Odoi, Iliman Ndiaye, who's at Sheffield United now, Phil Foden. I thought that was the best bunch you were going to get, but I think that might just top it.
Yeah, no, you know what? I remember because Edgar Davids come to Palace for a little bit,
yeah,
and I remember just being a little like, well, that's Edgar Davids. Still had the goggles on and everything like that. So, but to be honest, there was so many players, even at Crystal Palace, when I was doing my pro stuff there. Some of the first teamers at the time were really, even then, even though I looked at them like, oh, you're pros, like the likes of, back in the day, it was Paddy McCarthy, Julian Speroni, even Sean Derry. They were players that you look up to, and especially Paddy McCarthy for me, because he was a centre half, and he lived like in Keston. He only lives around the corner. I think he's a coach at Palace now still. And when I was a young centre back coming through, he was like the player that sort of I looked at to model over. Does that make sense? To sort of gauge where I need to be as a player. And the fact that he sort of he took time for you and stuff like that. Same with Sean Derry, and Julian Speroni is probably one of the nicest people I've ever met in football. But even back then, it was, you need them players. And you know what? I think because of them experiences is something that I try and emulate. When players might come and ask me for an opinion, obviously being captain at Bromley, there was youngsters there that would come up to me and ask me, and just because of how I was treated, which I know not all players are treated that way, but it left an impression on me to treat others like that. Like the youth coming up, make sure, I pass on whatever I know, or however good knowledge I have, pass it on to the next, to help them progress, however that might be. But I always got told that try throughout your career to let no one ever speak a bad word about you, and just help as many people as you can. And my nan told me that, to be honest. I'll let you know. My nan told me that, and it's something I live by. And I think that it's helped me throughout my career, and it's given me opportunities that maybe I wouldn't have had. So I know I'm diverging off a little bit, but just if I could give a bit of advice to anyone out there, it's just get your head down, try it the hardest you can, work hard, and just be a model professional, and don't let anyone say about you that you're a bad person. Or because especially in the non-league, people ask people about you, so you might not get an opportunity because someone thinks you're a bad person. So I wouldn't go near him.
Mhm.
Oh, what do you think of so and so? Oh, no. When I met him, he did this, and I don't like him. Never, as long as no one can say a bad word about you, and they say you work hard, never had a problem. I think that's half the battle, especially in non-league.
Brilliant. I think that's a good place to round off.